Hello and welcome. You're tuned into the best in paranormal talk radio. This is Darkness Radio. I'm your host, Dave Schrader. Along with me, Tim Dennis. Tim.
Yes.
Good stuff happening. Big stuff happening. Lots of fun going on. We've got great shows lined up for you over the next couple of weeks. I just locked in Mark Anthony, True Crime Tuesday, one of our favorite guests, and I know listeners love when Mark joins us. We're going to talk about the kidnapping of Frank Sinatra Jr. What a weird and twisted tale. That will be next Tuesday, True Crime Tuesday. How's that for good news to end this week with?
Very good news. Very good news. Yeah.
I also want to remind people tonight, live on Darkness Radio Facebook page and my personal Facebook page and on our Darkness Radio YouTube page, there is Holzer's Ghosts Live. Tonight we're going to look back at last week's episode and talk about Westover Manor, the episode that appeared on Discovery Plus of Holzer Files. So we'll take a deeper dive into that tonight. And tonight's going to be about you, the fans of the show, shining. You'll be able to chime in with questions and be a part of the program. And that's what's going to take place this evening. The episode will be available tomorrow as a podcast as well. You'll be able to download the audio of that episode if you didn't get a chance to watch it tonight. Tim, you know, part of the joy of doing the job we do is the connections that we make with people around the world.
Yes, indeed.
The emails that we get, the comments, the people that have stories to share. And that's what I'm excited about for today's show. I got an email a couple weeks back, and when it starts off with, "Hi, I'm an ET abductee, and I wrote a book called Abducted and Furious, How I Fought Back and How You Can Too, a True Story." This letter goes on, and it's great information, but I stopped reading after that point. At first, I'm like, good Lord, do I need anything more to know than that opening line? And I wrote back and said, let's do this. And unfortunately, it's been a while since we've been able to keep in contact. We're finally getting her on the show to talk about this. Lisa O'Hara is our guest today. And Lisa, first of all, what a great title for your book. Man, if that doesn't grab the imagination, I don't know what would.
Thank you. I wanted something that would tell the story, but grab people, just like you said.
Well, it certainly does, just in the headline alone. Now, we've heard stories through 15 years of doing the show of alien abductees. And, you know, it seems pretty split down the middle of people that are horrified and hated every minute of it and, you know, are fighting back. And then you've got the complacents. You've got the people that seem to enjoy the abductions and look forward to them and feel that they're in communicado with this higher intelligence and higher set of beings. And then you've got people like Whitney Strieber who kind of ride right, or Whitley Strieber, that ride right down the middle. They started off very angry and bothered and deeply affected and wounded by their abduction scenario. And now years into it, they feel much different about it. It's a friendly approach. These are the visitors. They're his friends. Your abduction scenario, how long ago did it begin for you?
I think it began in my childhood, but I only discovered it in 2017. And so I didn't really know about it. I was fascinated by, UFOs and that kind of thing, and ESP and, all the paranormal. And I did have strange experiences occasionally, but they were like one-offs and things that you couldn't label. Like I couldn't say I was a psychic, and I couldn't say I was, could have dreams that would come true. I might have one dream that came true. I might have, one very strange experience, and then it wouldn't happen again for a year or 2 years or 5 years. So, yes.
So you're still relatively new into this realization that you have been abducted.
That is correct.
All right. Well, now, before we start talking about when this awakening happened, talk to me about your life prior to this. Not necessarily now that you can reflect back on it with hindsight and know that maybe other abductions took place, but just reel it back for me and talk to me a little bit about Lisa O'Hara and her life. What was it like growing up and your family and just general overview of your life?
Sure. I grew up moving around all the time. My father was a mechanical engineer. he built copper smelters and gold leaching plants. And when I was younger, I could not say all of that. So all of my friends, every time I moved to another state, would think that my dad worked for the CIA. So,
Okay.
so I was, an oddity. Plus, because if you move every year, you have gaps in your education. Because just because you move to Alabama and they're on world history, and then you move to Louisiana and they're on Louisiana history, I mean, you just have gaps. So it was difficult, but, I am going to look back a little, but I found that moving around all the time was good because you had temporary situations. So let's say that I hated living in Turkey, which I did live there for 2.5 years. I knew that eventually I would leave. And so if it sucked, I didn't have to wait too long, even though 2.5 years when you're 10 is a very, very long time.
2.5 years when you're 53 is a long time sometimes. We all get affected in different ways.
All right. So
I'm curious. Everybody thought your dad worked for the CIA. Why? Just because you were constantly moving around and shuffling?
yes, and because I couldn't articulate what he did.
I gotcha.
So.
All right. And now, were you close with your family overall?
I think growing up I was, because you only have you. I mean, if you go to a foreign country, I was in Turkey in the 70s. I mean, you have your family who speaks English. Everyone else around you speaks Turkish. So, I mean, if you get mad at one of your sisters, I have 3 sisters, then maybe you have less playmates. So less interaction. So yes, I think it kind of brings you closer. My mom had to make everything from scratch because in the 70s in Turkey, they didn't have, they had separate stores. They had the meat store with no refrigeration. They had, the vegetable store, the bread store, and they also had a lot of goat milk, which we had to boil. And so, all of these things makes you pretty close and, and stuck with each other, basically. But I did have it was a fun childhood, but it was also really hard because every time you move, you have to start over. A lot of people avoid you for about 3 months. And the good thing is that you become very adaptable. You know how much time it'll take for people to get used to you. And so consequently, later when you change jobs, you know the exact formula for moving to a new job. You know how long it takes people to remember that you're in their environment and start including you in lunches. And you know what I mean? You just kind of get a feel for it.
Now, looking back at your life, do you feel that you had other aspects of the supernatural around you?
You mean like family members or what?
You or family members, I'm curious to setting this up because getting to know somebody that's been abducted by aliens, sometimes there's other stories that we found that they also seem kind of predisposed to having what they believe might have been ghostly visitations or other cryptid creature encounters.
I didn't really have that, but I did have, strange things that would happen that I couldn't explain. And, my mother was a former ER nurse, and so she was more no nonsense. I couldn't really talk to her about them. And my dad constantly traveled, being a mechanical engineer. So one of the things that would happen, and actually this is in my book, was that I kept having a daydream that would come true. So one time, every night for like a week, I would have a daydream, and it came to my head. It was a very kind of simplistic thing, like our maid, because when we lived in Turkey, we had maids. My maid was walking up the street, up to the house, and I kept having that over and over and over, and I couldn't figure out why. I couldn't get rid of it, and I kept thinking of it as a daydream because I was awake, and it just kept coming into my head. And then at the end of the week, that happened. So I thought that was very strange, but there was just there's no name for it. There's no, and especially as a 10-year-old, how do you?
Right. I mean, you were having precognitive moments, but, do you believe now, looking back at it through the eyes of an adult, do you believe that those were things that you daydreamed about, therefore you made them happen? Or do you believe that you were truly getting precognitive views of something that was to come?
Well, initially, when I was 10, and then when it happened again when I was 16, I thought I was creating it, because I started having a daydream that I was going to move to another foreign country, and I didn't want to because I was living in California at that time, and I was in my third year, or my junior year of high school, and I would only have 1 year left, and I was praying that wouldn't happen, but it did. So for a while, I did have the thought that I was creating it somehow by just thinking about it. But now I believe that it was like a remote view.
Oh, really? So you don't really necessarily look at it as a precognitive issue, as you do a sense of remote viewing something that was coming.
Yes, that's what I think. But again, I don't know.
Remote viewers, I wonder if they do have, are they tapping into a precognitive sense, or are they technically, are those kind of interchangeable if we really boil it down to the basics of what that experience is?
I don't know, but I do think that there are a lot of things like that are just like beyond our comprehension, of our everyday life. And I think that the more we do remote viewing, or we actually open our mind a little bit, we'll be able to have the words to describe these things. I mean, as a 10-year-old, I didn't have it. As a 16-year-old, I didn't have it. But, with my experiences now, I'm starting to look at it a little differently as to what it might have been.
All right. Now let's tumble into the awakening for you. Move along into 2017, if you would. And, what can you tell us about that year and leading up to the moment or the realization that something was amiss?
So in 2012 or 2011, I moved from California to Arizona, and I was trying at that point. Enough weird things had happened to me that I was trying to figure out how to classify myself. Was I intuitive? Was I a psychic? I mean, what did these things mean? And so I kind of got directed or pulled toward a book called How to Tell If You're a Medium. So I read it, and I thought, well, I mean, it's like horoscopes. It's vague. It could apply to me, but doesn't mean that it does, and so I'm just not really sure. Well, I started hearing knocking on the wall after I said to myself in my head without talking, I don't think I am a medium. So I started looking and meditating and looking for a mentor, a teacher for mediumship. And so I meditated and meditated and meditated and kept asking for, a teacher who could mentor me. And eventually I was told that I was a beacon of light by my spirit guide, which I found out his name was Koreg. And I finally did in 2016 met somebody whose boss was a medium. So at that point, I went to the medium and she said, yes, you're just like me, you're a medium. So at that point, I thought, well, I don't know where else I'm supposed to go, but why doesn't she mentor me so that I can become a medium? So I started that adventure and decided that may not be for me at some point because my hat's off to all mediums. It's really hard. It's hard to trust what comes into your mind and know that it's true.
So you were running into the issue of questioning what was real and what maybe you were imagining or
correct
creating. I know working with Cindy Kaza on the TV show The Holzer Files, talking to her, that seems to be the biggest stumbling point for a lot of people. And even she would run into it on the show. There were times that we would be trying to tap in and understand the spirits of this house, and she would say something very obscure and strange, and something that seemed like a throwaway because it made no sense to the story. And days later, I might be talking to an eyewitness or a historian, and it came back to mind, and I'd be like, hey, just out of curiosity, if I mentioned a giant peacock costume and, hidden gold. Would that make any sense to you? And they're like, holy cow. As a matter of fact, and then they tell me this crazy story. So I can understand that would probably be the most maddening part for me. But like Cindy learned to just give over to it. If the spirits are revealing it, say it. And sometimes it's the weirdest, most obscure or odd instances that would make you feel stupid even saying it that are really the corroboration. Those are the aha moments that mediums are looking for. But I respect the fact that you realized, if I can't discern which is which, I don't want to be a part of that. That's I think that's very respectable, because a lot of people would push through it. And I think there's been a pretty big onslaught of people who believe themselves to be medium or mediumistic and really are not. They're just, decent guessers at best.
Yeah, well, I think it's a huge responsibility, and the people that come to you are really in pain and they really need help. And I don't want to be unsure of something that I'm saying, and who knows? I mean, I felt very stressed out by it. But yes, there were a lot of weird things. Actually, when my mother came to me and made me write everything down that she wanted me to tell one of my sisters, and I did. And then my sister said, I want proof that it's mom, really mom. So tell me what I hold in my hand when I meditate. I hold something in my hand. Tell me what it is. And I was scared to death, because, but I asked and I got a crystal. So I said, it's a crystal. And I was right. So there are times when you're put into a corner that you have to say something. But, that is really scary. I mean, your friend having to say that and then having everyone wondering, what the heck? What did that come from? Or a client saying, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know anyone named Robert. And then, days later, them figuring it out. But there's that uncertainty, that kind of feeling of fraud right there. So.
Right. Yeah, I get that. So you're trying to train. You're obviously in a meditation. You're trying to open up to different paradigms. You realize what's for you and what's not. How does this begin to evolve into, oh my God?
Well,
I mean, that's a pretty big jump, right?
That is a pretty big leap. Yeah. So I was talking to my spirit guide, Korrig, actually, and he told me I was a beacon of light. And I didn't know what that meant. And a lot of times they won't even tell you. They don't tell you what it means. You're supposed to discover it for yourself. So one night I was meditating, and I suddenly felt a extremely negative presence in my room, my bedroom, because it was at night, and I was trying to sleep because I found meditation helped you sleep. And it was incredibly negative, and it was just really, menacing. And I know everyone's had that feeling of, when a room doesn't feel right, or it feels cold or off or something. And so I asked my spirit guide, what is that incredibly negative feeling in my room right now? And he said, oh, that's the ETs. They're here to take you. They took all your eggs, and that's why you don't have children.
Wait a minute. Now, who's telling you this?
My spirit guide.
All right. Now, can I ask a quick question? Not trying to throw you under the bus here, but dealing as a medium, questioning the information you're being given in those instances and realizing this is probably not for you. How do you then discern that the information you're getting from a spirit guide is legitimate information and not a hallucinatory or an imaginary effect?
Because because my whole life I felt like guided by something. And a lot of times I ignored it, and and I paid for it. And other times I went with it. And so but this was more like my own guidance, like system. And I was finally able to talk to it. I don't know, it felt different. I think maybe the prospect of me believing it versus somebody else I don't know and putting a lot of stock into what I said feels different to me than it does of me believing it, because there's nothing to lose. There's no huge responsibility, that kind of thing. So that's what I think. I believed in it this time.
All right. So this intuition. Now, I don't want to dismiss it as intuition, but how do you, again, discern between intuition your higher self and a true separate being or entity?
That's a good question, and that's really hard, actually. I found that to be very, very difficult. I've been working on that for a long time, but at the time, I felt like while the intuition feels normal and comfortable, the beings feel negative and like I should fear them. And fear is a constant throughout all my abduction scenarios. And so I think I just went with whatever felt right and whatever did not feel right as a guide.
But now UFOs, you'd had an interest in, kind of a passing fancy of that, but all of a sudden for the spirit guide to reveal to you, you've been abducted, your eggs have been harvested. That's why you haven't had a child. Is there ever a point where you question consciously, am I pointing a finger, trying to put something somewhere? I have to ask because I know the audience is going to be curious about this.
Right.
Is this legitimately going on, or am I trying to excuse why I have not been able to have a child?
Yes and no. I mean, here's the thing. When I was in my 30s and I could have a child, I was married before, so I had another marriage. And in my 30s, I would, while I was married, I would have these episodes of my husband, if I went to bed before he went to sleep, as soon as he walked into my room, I would sit up and start screaming like someone was killing me. Now, I only remembered that. I only would remember a black rectangle as the reason for that happening. And so that plagued me for a while, and I went to therapy. I couldn't figure out what was going on with that. Then later, after we got divorced, I started having these really weird things where I would sleepwalk, and I would find myself running down the hallways to the bedrooms or crouched at the edge of my bed, peering into my closet as if there was something in there talking to me. And I never had the ticking clock, and I never had that urge to have children. So, and I wondered, all these years, why? And maybe in some ways, having that as a possibility kind of made sense to me. Because I do like children. It's just that I never had that feeling of I need to have children. So I think it was sort of made everything else kind of fall into place for me in my mind as to why this was happening. Because I did feel really, really odd. I mean, odd in that I didn't have that urge. I'd gotten a divorce before, right in the middle of my childbearing years. And so I knew I wasn't normal, or what society deems as normal. And so it kind of just was kind of a relief to know that to a degree, to know that there was a reason that this happened.
So you start to get this realization from this being, the spirit guide, and they tell you this matter of factly. Did you question your spirit guide as to why they hadn't given you this information sooner? I would think that'd be an important thing.
Yes, I did say that. It's like, what the heck? You've been holding back on me. And apparently I had to have asked that question. So, and also, I guess, and I need to be ready to hear an answer. So whatever I was doing while meditating, maybe I was opening my mind. I don't know. But actually, as scary and horrible as that sounded, it was actually kind of gentle, I thought, because I asked the question. They didn't spring it on me any other time. I had to ask, what is this weird feeling in the room? And maybe it's possible that a couple of years before, I would not have been able to feel it because I was changing my mind space by meditating. And it's possible that I was becoming more and more sensitive to these negative, possibly negative or positive feelings. And now I could finally feel it. And then when I asked the question, I was told the answer.
Eesh, what is that like then? That moment that you accept that this information you're being given is that you're being abducted by aliens and they're harvesting your eggs.
It was terror, panic, fear. I mean, just absolute, fear and feeling of that can't be true. And I just can't believe it. And also, I had always thought, oh, thank God I'm not one of those people that get abducted. But yet, it's possible that it's me too. And so I was just really, really scared, and I didn't want to believe it either. I did tell my husband. He said, that's not true. That can't be true. And that actually made me feel a little bit better because I felt so terrified at the thought of me going to sleep and not realizing that something was happening and then going about my day, the normal life of get up, go to work, go to bed, wake up, go to work kind of routine. And I just felt so much better thinking that it couldn't possibly be true, but I knew it felt true. So I just was able to kind of get used to it a little at a time and decide for myself whether I believed it. And I did, but I just needed a little bit of time to wrap my mind around it.
Now, I'm curious, it's one of these questions like, do I ask now or do I wait a little bit longer? And we'll come back to this. I'm going to do that. I'm going to come back to this. I'll bait the audience a little bit longer, but you get this information. What do you do with it at this point? Do you look for corroborating signs? Do you just start trying to piece together strange aspects of your past and fit them into these holes that might make more sense?
No, what I do is, since I was working with my medium to become a medium myself, I have an appointment with her pretty regularly to work on becoming a medium. And I tell her, oh my gosh, you won't believe. And she said, I know. So I tell her this. I tell her that I'm really upset about it and I don't want to be in this position anymore. And how dare they, take me? Can we undo this? And she was of the opinion that they were soul contracts and that I had agreed to this before I came to the earth or was born, and that I just needed to try to break the soul contracts. And so we worked at that for a while, and it kind of gave me a sense of comfort knowing, one, that someone believed me, that a second person knew this about me, and that they were willing to work with me to try to undo it. So that's what embarked on this crazy ride of trying to figure out how to change this, how to change my circumstance so that I'm not being abducted anymore. And it slowly turned from fear, utter fear, into anger and rage. And then eventually I have no fear now.
All right. You are being violated in essence. And this whole
Right.
soul contract thing to me, and I'm not meaning to sound dismissive to you, just sounds ridiculous. We've heard it on the show for 15 years, but then you sit there and you go, in what world or between worlds am I sitting there looking at the menu of life, and I choose, yes, fat, bald, bad breath, and oh yes, alien abduction. Let's add that to the chart of bad things. To me, that would seem like no. How about good looking, amazing singer, and a long lifespan? That's what maybe I'm just taking the needy, clingy way out here, but that seems the pathway I would ask for. Are you able to rectify that or kind of accept that whole soul contract stuff?
No.
Okay, thank you. I was going to say, and then the concept of that you have to break the soul contract. My question, again, not meaning to sound dismissive, is what attorney do you get that can help you break that contract?
Yeah.
I don't know, how do you negotiate that if this is something you're predestined to experience?
I agree, and I really felt that was some sort of cop-out. It's like, no, this is your fault. You chose this, It's like blame me for this choice that I made before I knew how it would feel, you know. So no, I didn't agree with her. I did not believe that, but at the same time, I thought, well, you know, if I want to get out of this, I might as well try it because you never know. So we did try that. We tried going to the Akashic record. I don't know if you've heard of that before.
Oh,
And
of course.
changing it. Yeah.
So you're sneaking into the Akashic Hall of Records with a bottle of white out to try to change the soul.
Exactly.
I like that. Yeah, very Ferris Bueller of you, right? Trying to get
Yeah.
in and change the grade situation. You're violated in a very personal way. You know, I mean, this is I can't think of a sanitized way of saying you're basically, in a sense, being raped by aliens.
Right.
And you know, obviously you go through that moment of terror, but is there an aspect of you then that's looking for marks, looking for
Absolutely.
handprints, looking for, you know, alien landing spots in your backyard? What is that experience like?
Yes, what happened was eventually, well, I started noticing all these weird bruises. Now, I am a bit of a klutz, so there are times when, you know, I'll be trying to be efficient about going around a corner and I'll cut it as close as I can and they end up, you know, bouncing off of it. And so that does happen and I run into things a lot. But I started noticing that I had bruises, you know, strange bruises, you know, like 6 fingers, 4 fingers. And I actually have pictures and I'll send them to you. But I just started really noticing that, you know, I wouldn't have a bruise before I went to bed, but the next day I would have a bruise. And they were very unusual bruises. And I have pictures of some of the most unusual ones. But I would have also cuts on my arms that would look like they went right to a vein. And just things like that, which, you know, I knew it wasn't happening because I was doing something in the middle of the night. And I also had one that looked like it was made with a syringe or a stamp, and it was either SP or JP, and just things like that. But initially, I did look for bruises, but the main thing that I started noticing was at first, after I calmed down from my fears, I thought, you know what, there's something else that I can do. I can look for clues that tell me what's going on here. And the way it started, and this didn't come to me out of the blue, it just started because I noticed that sometimes my clothes had this rank, horrible smell that smelled kind of like BO and feet. And I couldn't figure out where it was coming from. And it feels, you know, in hindsight, it looks like in a ridiculously long time, but that I was looking at this. But, you know, you think, well, there's a logical explanation for it. So I smelled my clothes back into the laundry hamper. Then I thought, then I noticed that they smelled when they were in the laundry room after my husband folded them. And I thought, wow, I must not used enough laundry detergent. So I threw them all back in, immediately washed them again, then took them out, smelled them. They all smelled fine. Then I thought maybe it was because I have 2 cats and the cat box is in the laundry room. Maybe that's what's happening. So again, with the washing. So finally, after moving them around and finding out if I put them in my closet, nothing happened to them, I left a workout outfit on the counter to my bathroom. And I had a dream that I had had been walking around an airport with just the workout top on, no bottoms. And the next day I smelled them and they smelled. So I smelled them before and they didn't smell. So that led me to believe that if I smell my clothes are going somewhere. I'm leaving my house, I'm putting on clothes, and when they come back, they smell because of the environment I was in when I was gone.
And the environment being sweaty, stinky aliens, apparently.
Exactly. Or maybe underground, or I don't know. But the smell was pretty rank and, yeah, not good.
Oh, God, I can't even imagine. We have to take a quick break. Lisa O'Hara, our guest today, Abducted and Furious. how I fought back and how you can too. We'll have a link up for that book on today's program guide. Stay tuned. We've got more coming your way right here on Darkness Radio. Welcome back to the program. This is Darkness Radio, your home for the best in paranormal talk radio. I'm Dave. That's Tim. Lisa O'Hara, our guest today. There's a link for her book right here on our program guide. And I want to ask you guys a quick favor for me. We're only going to do this a few more times, I promise. My son, Cliff, a Minnesota firefighter, is helping to raise money for the Special Olympics by doing what's called a polar plunge. For those of you in the warmer climates, you'll never know the pain of what this is. They cut a hole in the lakes of Minnesota, and all of the people gather, and then selected few will dive into the waters of these icy lakes in a way to awaken people to the special needs of the Special Olympians. So if you'd like to help sponsor my son in this, any size donation, $1, $5, $10, $20, $1 million, whatever you've got, it'll go a long way to help him out. And his goal this year is $10,000. The Darkness Radio audience last year helped raise $5,000, so we're going to push that envelope this year, see if we can get it up past $10,000. If you'd like to be a part of that, just email me, dave@darknessradio.com, dave@darknessradio.com, and you can make a donation right through the link that I'll email back to you. Again, any size is fine. And it would be deeply appreciated because all the money that gets raised goes to help the Special Olympians with their uniforms, their training, and travel expenses. So let's give these special athletes what they deserve and the extra hand by making any size donation you can. Again, email me, dave@darknessradio.com. Lisa O'Hara, our guest. All right, Lisa. These are some weird situations, and I want listeners out there, if you've had experiences like this, email us, tell me about it, dave@darknessradio.com. I want to know more about it, and share your experience, especially with the strange odors and the scent. That's relatively new to me. I've never heard of that before, Lisa. Have you, in talking to other abductees?
No, I haven't. But I also haven't talked to a lot of abductees because, like you, I have found that it seems like there's contactees, there's experiencers, but there's not a lot of abductees. But the people that I've talked to haven't mentioned it. But it could be that they just don't care because they are enjoying their experiences with them, and maybe they have their other senses are activated by when they're with the ETs.
So you're starting to amass some evidence of something strange going on. You've talked to your husband. He's telling you, no, this isn't real. Is he warming to the concept, to the idea, or is he, close to signing, commitment letters? How is this working?
He's not close to signing commitment letters, and he, can get his head around that I'm having this experience. But to him, it's just beyond his understanding of science. He doesn't believe it. And he, so he doesn't discount what I say and what I think, and he's not going to commit me. But at the same, he's not moved by my experiences. And at first, I thought that was really terrible. And, but I found that I really need somebody who is sort of grounded, and not that I'm not. It's just that sometimes I feel like I just need some normalcy. And when you're in this situation, when your whole world is turned upside down, you really want to feel that normalcy of your normal life before you found this out. So. On the one hand, I wish he believed me more, but on the other hand, it's nice that I can go back home to normalcy sometimes.
I can assume. All right, so let's continue on with this. You're putting these pieces of the puzzle together. What does this tell you, and how long do you start to realize this, and then do you begin to have actual conscious awareness of these visitations?
What happens is I get a notebook and I start writing everything down, because I was already doing that actually with my mediumship, because I was, working through trying to figure out how to become a medium and that kind of thing. So I just start writing down all these clues. So I just try to notice as much stuff that was happening before I was abducted. Since my memory was wiped, I could never remember anything that happened to me. I would just suddenly wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning, 3:33. I'd wake up at 12:30 3 times. Just things like that would happen. So what I started doing is I started writing everything down in my notebook, anything unusual. And I noticed that a lot of times on the 6th or 7th of the month, I would hear 2 low-flying planes and a helicopter go over my house. And then sometimes I would hear what sounded like people walking around on my roof. And, it happened no matter if I was in South Lake Tahoe for a family gathering or at home in Arizona. So I just started, trying to look for anything that I could say, oh, they're coming tonight or whatever. So one of the things I noticed was right before I would go to sleep is I would feel like a pinprick or a mosquito bite, and I started calling it a sleep dart, because that's how I would be induced to sleep, because they want you to sleep. At least my ETs did. And so I would be hit by the sleep dart, and then I would not be able to stay awake. So I, wrote that down. There were times when I thought, well, the heck with you. I'm not going to go to sleep for you, so you can do whatever to me. So I would stay up all night. But as you know, unless you're 20, staying up all night does not help you the next day. So
no, it certainly doesn't.
So I, didn't realize this isn't smart, because I'm not, functional the next day. So I did try, I tried different things too. I got some cameras that actually look like picture frames. They're basically nanny cams, that they're motion detected, and I tried to catch them in the act. I'd turn them on, everything would work fine. I had 2 of them, one on these 2 bookcases that would face my bed. And the next day, they would not be on and not be off. They'd be in between on and off. So nothing happened. They just weren't working. And so I just wrote all this stuff down. That's what I started doing. And I start to try to find patterns. After that, I started, in between, actually, I'd been taking classes with my medium for healing. And I started taking this class called La Ho Chi. And I found that if I used La Ho Chi in between after I woke up from being abducted, I would be able to sleep. Because a lot of times when I woke up after an abduction, I wouldn't be able to sleep at all. I'd be awake for hours. So I started, I took the classes and I was able to sleep. And because I was into healing, and I'm kind of an all-in person, so when I was going to be a medium, I was all in, and I did everything that my medium told me, and even, things that I didn't believe in, whether it was Akashic Records or having a soul contract. I tried it, because why not? You have nothing to lose. If it works, you've really solved your problem. So I tried healing. I tried healing myself from the contracts and that kind of thing. And it didn't really help, but it helped to sleep. So at that point, I then, because I was into healing at that point, I went on Amazon and bought every book that was talking about healing. One of the books that talked about healing was from Stuart Swerdlow. I don't know if you've heard of that guy.
Yes.
Yes.
And, okay. Please go on.
And so he wrote quite a few healing books. One of them is called Healing Archetypes and Symbols. And he has another very large, it's probably the size of a laptop book on different healing techniques, like 100 or 150 healing techniques. So I tried them all. Some worked for me, some didn't, that kind of thing. But so at some point, the medium had me reading out a manifesto of that's what my husband called it, of demanding that my angels protect me, and that because I have my sovereignty and have my free will, I have my right to free will, and I was supposed to demand that they not take me, and because I'm sovereign, I'm a sovereign being. So I did that for a while and finally realized this isn't working for me. They're taking me every night. And after I had looked at the Stuart Swerdlow book, one of them, the Symbols book, was extremely esoteric. And I just thought, I cannot even understand this. I mean, this is beyond me. So at some point, my spirit guides, because I'm still talking to them, say, you need to go back to that Stuart Swerdlow healing book. And so I tried it. I tried some things, and I noticed that I could see what was going on before my memory wipe. Now, the way I did that was I read everything, so I'm kind of a fanatic. But so if I get someone's book and they reference other books, then I'll read them. I'll look them up. I'll see if I'm interested, and I'll read every book in the current book that I'm reading. And so what happened was I had heard that Stuart Swerdlow was a healer. And so they direct me right back to those books, and I read it, and it made more sense to me, I guess, after I had healing experiences. He also has some exercises that I started using, and a book that I read was Whitley Strieber's Communion. Now, one of the problems with the whole memory wipe thing is that you do not know what happened to you, and it's really a point of frustration, because that's why you feel so helpless, is that something happened to you and you don't know what it is. They're keeping that from you. So I read Whitley Strieber's book, and one of the things in there, one of the little nuggets in there, was that the human body, the mind, creates a screen memory for you. So the ETs are not in control of these screen memories, but your mind is. So when you're having a trauma, you might have a stress dream. So it's to protect you. Your mind is protecting you and giving you something familiar, so that when you have this screen memory, it's something that's familiar to you, like you lost your wallet and you can't find it anywhere. You thought you dropped it, but you didn't, and there's a test today, and that kind of thing. So after I found out that I could look behind my memories, or my screen memories, or my dreams, I found a exercise in one of Stuart's books called the Green Spiral Staircase. And what it does is it allows you to look behind the screen memory. And when you look behind the screen memory, you can see what was happening to you. And I started writing all that down, and I started using another of Stuart Swerdlow's tools called the Brown X, where you Brown X out all unnecessary negativity in your life. And I started Brown Xing out all those things I saw that were behind my screen memories. And I wrote down all my screen memories. I wrote down the screen memories, then I looked behind them, wrote down everything I saw. And eventually I was able to piece together what was happening to me.
Once you're cracking those screen memories, how terrifying is that to you?
It is pretty terrifying, I have to say. One of the things that I love.
Seeing them then when you're doing this? Do you remember actually seeing them while you were doing this?
I was seeing in my mind what was going on behind the screen memory. So, yes.
And what did these beings look like?
Well, let me go back a little bit. At some point, I was with the medium. She felt like she was at an impasse, so she sent me to a acupuncturist that she knew. She said was intuitive, and I said, I'm really frustrated. I want to see these things. What is taking me? Because even though I felt the negativity, I couldn't see what it was. And so, my spirit guide told me it was grays, so I was expecting to see grays. So I went to the acupuncturist, and that night, I saw a praying mantis.
And that, you believe, is the version
Yes.
of the aliens that were dealing with you?
Yes. And the reason I think that is, well, two things. One was that the praying mantis that showed up actually kind of strode in my room. I assigned a male identity to him because he seemed, very take charge. Actually walked right up to my bed. I was laying there, and he seemed about 7 feet tall. I'm 5'10", so if you're taller, you kind of have a feeling of how tall people are, or if they're taller than you or whatever. And so what happened was that guy hit me with some sort of spoon or tuning fork on the lady parts, and I vibrated all over, and it hurt. And then he pointed at me, and then I fell asleep.
All right. So I'm sorry. I need to unpack that whole statement. So he uses a tuning fork on your lady parts.
Right.
to do what? Do you get any information from that? Was he trying to bring you pleasure before harvest, or what
I don't know. It hurt, so I don't think so. I don't know if he just wanted to hurt me and then make me fall asleep or try to scare me. I mean, I don't really know. But it does seem like they are very into fear. Now, I had another experience where I saw another praying mantis. Now, I had gotten...
Wait 1 second. So it does this to you with this tuning fork deal, then it points at you, and you go unconscious.
Correct.
You wake up back in your room?
Yes.
Okay. Are you aware of being on a craft? Is this doing it to you in your own house?
Yes, doing it to me in my own house, and then taking me somewhere, and then I'm coming back, and I'm wide awake because it's 3:00 in the morning or 4:44 or something like that, and wondering what happened to me. Of course, I jump up and write everything down that I can remember, because that's one of the clues. Is that, I don't know what I know what that thing was, but I wanted to write down everything I remember about it, because prior to him or her coming, I didn't, I wasn't expecting it. It just was all of a sudden. I fell asleep immediately, couldn't stay awake. And so that's the first thing I do, actually, is write everything down, because these are my clues.
Okay.
So...
Okay, so then you have this happen. You're aware of this. And now, once that opens up to you, what do you do to keep yourself calm and in a place of being able to move forward? Because that sounds like it would, that'd be enough for me. I'd be like, nope, that's it. I'm checking out. I can't, if I'm getting abducted and tuning forked and I don't know. I don't know how you just progress with that, especially with that knowledge.
I think for me, it's curiosity. I mean, extreme curiosity, but also just anger. I mean, how dare they do that to me? I'm not their cattle, So I think that my anger really propelled me forward, and I really wanted to understand why it was happening to me, how it was happening to me. And I started looking at everything as like a clue, because I thought that if they could be my guinea pig instead of the other way around, I could discover how to stop it for myself. And so that's what propelled me. And, so anger, curiosity, and the need to know why and how.
Do you believe these beings are from off-world, meaning other planets, other, solar systems, or are they interdimensional beings that are right here around us all the time?
I think they are interdimensional, but for a while I thought they were off-world, and because it's odd how all of a sudden you're there, and then you're in your room, and then all of a sudden they're in your room. So did they walk through the wall? I mean, I'm laying in bed. I'm preparing to go to sleep. I'm not expecting a big praying mantis to walk in, and I didn't see where they came from. There were times that I would see like a big bright circle appear on my ceiling, and then I would hear noises that sounded like somebody had walked in. But I didn't know how they got there. And that's part of the reason, was like, I was saying to myself, oh my gosh, how did that even happen? So I was on a mission to, notice everything, because obviously there were things about how they were getting into my room that I didn't know. They do seem magical, but what if they're just commonplace? But my mind isn't open enough to figure out what it is, So I saw it as a challenge. Okay, you're doing this to me. You have all the power now, but you just wait. I'm gonna figure this all out, and I'm gonna take that away from you. So I did see another praying mantis. I was on I had gotten cut on the leg by a recycle bin, and that night I saw it started throbbing. It hadn't been throbbing prior. And that night I saw another praying mantis come by, and she told me her name was Moma, and it was telepathic. She said that she was here. She wanted to take me on my ship and fix my leg, and begged me to let her take me on a ship. And I said no, because I didn't want to agree to be on a ship, because that's what got me in this trouble in the first place, was having this soul contract. So I said, okay, well, I'm not going to do that. But that's when I realized I must have implants, because I think it called her. And so that was one of the things that happened. She looked just like a kind of a wider, greenish praying mantis. And I was just, sort of in that position of being so, I wasn't paralyzed, but I was just so fascinated when I saw her that I just couldn't tear my eyes away from me. I couldn't stop looking at her. I just was so fascinated by that I had this very large praying mantis by my bed talking to me, trying to get me to go to her ship. I just couldn't tear my eyes away from me. But I could have moved, but I just didn't, and I don't know why.
Did you give in to this being?
No.
Or you just fought it? How did she respond to it? Did she seem agitated or irritated by it?
One thing she did was she just kept begging me, and she tried different things. Like she said, well, my name is Moma, and I took care of you. And, I felt like it was, at the time, I took her at face value, but later I was thinking it was probably manipulation of some type, because she was employing emotion. Mm-hmm. And so but at the time she said, well, what if we'll let you allow me to take you if the bad guys get you, basically, if the bad aliens or bad praying mantis take you, will you let me take you then? And I thought, well, I think I said okay at that time. But later, I just thought, this is a whole manipulation. They're using my emotions, against me. And so maybe this is part of it. Maybe it's all about emotions. And later, I did feel that way very strongly, because I was shown apparently a hybrid child of mine. Since I don't have children, they showed me they said, here's one of your children. This is your baby. How does that make you feel? Hold it and tell me how it makes you feel. And I said to them, well, I don't feel anything. But if I did, I wouldn't tell you, because I know you would use that against me. So there's some part of me. I need
to ask then, this is a human-alien hybrid.
Yes.
What does it look like?
It looked like a baby. And this one was a toddler. It didn't really look any different to me. So I don't really remember much about the baby, and it could be that they just told me it was a baby and it wasn't, because I'm starting to really wonder about hypnosis. Everyone's on these regressions, this hypnotic regression. Right. And I'm wondering about the ETs. Are they making suggestions to us in a way that allows them to take us, make us kind of like childlike? And so I don't remember what the baby looked like at all, but I remember just my reactions to it. So I thought that was strange, and that does happen a lot.
Did you feel that you were in fact connected to this child?
No.
Okay. Huh. fascinating. They've been harvesting. You're aware that they've been harvesting. Do you think that that you are part of a hybridization program then, or do you think that they're doing something else?
Interesting question. Well, I don't know, but here's an interesting thing. So I lived in California for approximately 30 years, and every time, and I have like German descent, and also French. So I would have these people walk up to me and say, "Hey, oh, I'm sorry, you look exactly like my friend's sister's brother's girlfriend," some crazy thing. And I would have that happen to me like 4 times a month for my entire existence in California. 4 times a month. Someone would come up and say, "Oh, you look just like someone I know," or "You look like my sister's aunt," or whatever. And so I started to wonder if I just had tons of clones in California. So 10 years ago, I moved to Arizona. That never happens to me there. And so you got to wonder, why do I have all these people who look exactly like me in California, but none in Arizona? And I don't think that's a coincidence. So it may be one.
So you moved to Arizona to start spreading your seed there, you think?
Maybe, because I lived there since I was 13 until I was 50. So I do think that there's something there. I don't know what it is. I mean, it's beyond my comprehension, but what if they were just cloning, doing a lot of cloning? And I always wonder, too, I mean, when they finally come out in the mainstream media about, some thing that they're doing, like Dolly, the sheep that they cloned, how long have they really been doing that? I mean, before they tell us. So I don't think it's beyond the pale, I guess, is the word, that could be happening, but we are just not aware of it.
Right. All right. Now that you've got this concept and you're seeing these aliens, do you ever come across any other alien, or are they just this mantis character?
Actually, I do see a lot of people, and I also see a lot of spiders. And it feels like they're doing some sort of experiments where they're experimenting cross species. Like, for instance, I've seen cat spiders. So cats with, a cat head and some part of a cat body and then 8 legs. And I've seen a lot of spiders and also spiders that are wearing people suits. I've also seen reptilians and that are shapeshifters. They shift between being reptilian and also people. There's a lot of military things I see in there. I've been underground. I've been in Antarctica, under the water, in surgical centers where I'm being operated on, and people are watching. And there are other things that look like bugs, beetles and odd ones that look like they're a beetle with fins, sort of like a stork. And, I've just seen a lot of strange things like that. Spiders that growl at you, spiders that are trying to find out information. I've also seen myself in water tanks where I'm trying to learn how to breathe underwater, and just really strange things. So after a while, I may sound calm, but after a while you get you start seeing so many of these things over and over that you're just like, okay, well, what did they do to me and how does it work? And so you're trying to piece it all together, and it's not as thrilling or scary anymore. You just continue, trying to piece everything together.
From what year to what year do you think you've been abducted?
I really think it's been from like 2 until now. I'm still being abducted. I was being abducted 4 times a night when I wrote my book. Now I'm only being abducted 1 time a night. So my clothes still smell. They don't smell like BO and feet. Now they sort of smell like greasy diner, where they're frying things. And I don't know if you ever noticed this, but sometimes if you're in a place that's frying a lot of stuff, the oil is actually in the air. And I know this because I'm asthmatic. And so when I am having trouble breathing, I cannot be in a place that either has water in the air, like it's humidity, or someplace that's frying things because the oil is in the air. And that's what my clothes smell like now. So there's been a change. And I am being abducted, but not, my clothes don't smell the same anymore.
What do you attribute that to?
Hopefully that the tools I found in my book are working, and that the people that were taking me and torturing me or doing surgeries to me, they take out my eyes and they actually put things in my eyes. I have 2 eye implants that actually, when I go to bed at night, and also during the day intermittently, I haven't been able to figure out the pattern, will turn on. They look like little orbs. Sometimes they change shape. But when you rub your eye and you close it and you can see that little orb, that's what they look like. I've seen them. Sometimes it looks like a monarch caterpillar. Sometimes it looks like a monarch butterfly. It's looked like a jellyfish. It's looked like a zebra. I can see it, and I can turn it off if I flick my head to the right. It always comes back on. But so I think that they're just doing things to me. But I do think that hopefully those people or beings have decided that's not worth it, because maybe all the tools I'm using are actually working. And so that's how I like to look at it, that it's actually working for me. I'm getting out of their clutches, and I'm freeing myself. And that's why I wrote the book, because if I can do it, you can do it.
All right. For listeners that believe that they're going through a similar situation with abduction and want to end it, what are some of the tips? I know you want people to buy the book and get more, but what are some of the tips that they can begin with tonight to try to start to protect themselves?
Well, one thing they can do, and this works really, really well, and I'm not religious, but the word Yahweh, which is a Hebrew word for God, I have found that really works for clearing a room of negativity, and it can lift your spirit, and it really is worthwhile to use. And there's no reason. You can say it out loud or say it to yourself. It really helps. That's one thing. Another thing you can do is, write everything down. That's really, really important, and try to look at it as like you're a detective of your own life, because these things are happening to you. There are clues all around. There's something that maybe you've heard of or not, or remote viewers. And so I started noticing that after I took a remote viewing course, and I started noticing that I was being, sort of surveilled by remote viewers. And so it took me a long time to figure out what exactly they're doing, but they're like spying on you. And they are telling the people that are higher than them what you're doing, how you're doing it, and all that kind of thing. So just pay attention to your environment. Instead of having your earbuds in all the time, listen to your environment. Is your house, does it sound like there's all these weird noises, like thunking, like when you thunk a watermelon, or cracking, or popping? Do you hear these noises? Are they in your car? Where are they? Are they following you? So just sort of try to look at things in a different way. If your house is creaking, is it windy outside? So try to eliminate things that way. And then I would also say the most important thing is try to calm your fear, because they're kind of like succubus. They are sucking on your fear and your anxiety and your panic. And they enjoy it. I think they enjoy it. So the more fearful you are, the more they can enjoy your experience. And that's I think that's their goal. So definitely, if you start seeing, and I've seen this, Gray's faces in red and with the angry, mouth like you would put on a pumpkin for Halloween. If you see something like that, laugh. Don't, get scared. Don't have your heart pound. Just show them you're not afraid. And I think that will really help.
Just kind of forcing this new paradigm, laughing, kind of being in a higher vibrational tonality, you think, is what's going to change the at least the rudimentary aspect of them seeking you?
I think that it will help. I don't think that it will end anything, but I think that it takes away their power, and they're arrogant and they get off on their lording their power and your fear over you. That's how they control you. They control you through fear. So I think that it really does help. But beyond, you're going to have to put the work in, actually, to get them off of you. You're going to have to find out what your situation is. Now, I have this really weird situation. And when I told MUFON about it, because I didn't know where to turn at a certain point of who do I tell these things to, what do I do, where do I go, I went to MUFON and I put my data into their experiencer group. And the lady who took the information says, wow, I've never heard anything like this before. So I think that it's by design so that we can't compare notes, that all of these experiences are really strange and really not like the other. That's what I think, especially for abductees. And so I think it's important for us to, write everything down and do the work to look behind your screen memories and piece together your actual story. Because if you don't, you will have no idea what's going on and how to get rid of these things. Also, if you use the brown X, it's like a brown. If you look at Stuart Swerdlow's book, you'll see it, but it's like a medium brown. And if you just imagine after a dream, brown Xing out anything in there, it helps. It's the best thing to do is to look behind it and brown X that. I don't think it'll stop it, but I think that you can at least feel a measure of control.
Has that brought you peace, even though
Yes.
you're still being abducted?
Yes, it has.
Do you think you'll ever be done with them? Do you think when you hit menopause, that's it? Or will they continue to experiment on you?
Oh, I have hit menopause.
Okay. Well, I'm just saying, if they're harvesting.
I'm going to be 60 this year, so it's beyond me why they still want me. I mean, it really is, because I found out that they were taking me in when I was 56. So here I am at 60, nearly 60 in August. It defies logic why they would still want to take me. So they have some reason, some agenda. I don't know what it is. And so I still want to stop it. I don't care why they're still doing it. I still feel enraged that they have the nerve to do it. But yeah, my goal is to be finished with them, and I'm going to go on until I'm done with them. I'm not going to. But I do want to say that from publishing my book until now, I have, my situation has changed. It's completely different now. It's like a light year away. And so you will find out things. Now, I do have to read my book periodically when I go on these shows, because I have to remember where I was. Where I am is totally different now. And when I read my books, and this is why the journaling is so important. So I go back and read my book, and my journal is in my book, actually. And what I found, everything I've seen. So when I go back, whatever puzzled me in 2020 when I published my book, I think to myself, oh my gosh, now I finally understand that, and I understand this. And so the more you do it, and the more pieces you get to your puzzle, the more you'll understand. And then it leads you to other things that you could do. So my book isn't the end all be all to getting rid of the ETs, but it's a starting point. And when you start, you will have other ideas that will help you on your journey, that will take you, who knows where. And when you get there, make sure you take all those pictures, because I didn't have that many pictures. And you also write everything down and write your own book. Help other people with your journey.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. We have a link up for your Facebook page and for the book on today's program guide. Lisa O'Hara, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. I really had a great time. Thank you so much.
Thank you. We'll be back again live tonight, folks. Holzer's Ghosts. We're going to do the look back at last week's episode, The Ghost That Got Away, the haunting of Westover Manor. And I've got some special guests that are going to join me, some Holzer Files super fans, to discuss that episode and the Holzer Files in general. So watch along on the stream tonight on my Facebook page or on Darkness Radio's Facebook page or our Darkness Radio YouTube page. That starts at 10 p.m. Eastern, 9 p.m. Central, 7 p.m. Pacific. And that episode will be available in audio podcast form tomorrow here on the best in paranormal talk radio. For Tim Dennis, I'm Dave Schrader. You've been listening to Darkness Radio.